be certifiably mad to produce wine in England, but on days like this, you can't help wondering. The fervent optimist who in 1988 decided to convert part of her husband's arable farm in Suffolk into Wicken vineyards is Mississippi-born Carla Carlisle. Don't you have to be slightly crazy to grow vines in England?
I must say, on a day like today, you do feel that that dreamy optimism that you felt in 1988 was probably misplaced. I still think that the evidence is that this is going to be a very good wine-growing area. I think I'm not as loony as it might look.
What was your path to wine? Because you were brought up in Mississippi, your parents drank bourbon.
Mississippi was a dry state at the time, and you could only get any form of alcohol by either going to a bootlegger, and the bootleggers did not sell wine, or going to Louisiana. And my parents would go once a year to buy wine for Christmas, and then we would drink the red wine with our turkey. And from the very first sip I ever had of it, I loved it. I thought it was just the most exciting, wonderful, delicious tasting thing I'd ever had.
En route to this Elizabethan hall near Bury St Edmunds, with its 1,200 acres, Carla was a civil rights activist in California, taught English literature at university in Paris, and, crucially, met its owner, ex-Tory minister Sir Kenneth Carlisle, whom she married in 1986. She's now a columnist for Country Life. As well as running the 7-acre vineyard, she persuaded an initially reluctant Kenneth to let her plant. It's a very powerful smell, isn't it? Very aromatic. It is like Sauvignon Blanc, isn't it? Vaguely sort of curranty.
I love it.
I can't see how anyone, the most prejudiced person who says, I don't like English wine, would not object to that smell. They love it.
Yes, I think that if I'm trying to woo a prejudiced wine drinker, this is the one that I go for.
So that's quite a German profile, isn't it? But not a German taste. Is that because you deliberately want to make dry wines?
I deliberately go for those drier wines. There's enough of that medium German-style wine out there. It's one of the reasons why I have avoided grapes like Meurthe-Thurgau, Sèvres Blanc. I've really tried to go for a French style, if you can call it that, dry white wine.
But the harvest can be more heartrending in England than in France. Spring frosts mean crops at Wicken can vary between 20,000 and just 3,000 bottles. Carla is a hands-on vigneron. Being so far from the equator, there's never any shortage of natural acidity. The crucial thing is the sugar level, measured here on a refractometer with Charles, the vineyard manager.
Oh, it is. Nearly getting on for 90.
Napa Valley, great.
Do you drink mainly English wine now?
We drink a lot of Wicken wine because it's there. And I think that we do suffer from something that in the Napa Valley they call cellar palate, where you drink your own wines so much that you start thinking that they're absolutely fabulous. They're absolutely the most, you become hooked. You can't understand why anybody just doesn't find all of that little acidity just irresistible.
Like so many English-grown grapes, Carla's are trucked to a winery an hour away, with all the hardware needed for crushing them and fermenting the juice into wine. Rob Hemphill makes wine for 15 different growers. Were you inspired initially by any English wines before you planted your vineyard?
I have to say I wasn't.
Carla's now passionately opposed to the fad for making English wine New World-like by using fancy yeasts and oak chips. This American's after an authentically English style. So you're convinced that vine growing has a long-term future in England?
I believe that it does, but it's not going to have a future if, if people don't want to drink English wines. And I think that what we've got on our side, I think that the weather is moving in our favour increasingly. As long as it's treated as a kind of, I don't know, kind of, you buy a bottle of English wine as a souvenir. You don't buy it because you really want to drink it. It's, that the enemy is this prejudice.
Making white wine in England's one thing, but making red wine's surely a perversion, or in Carla's case, a hobby horse, dependent on hybrid vines with smelly American genes.
It's got a bit of a foxy taste.
It doesn't smell 100% winey to me.
No.
You know. I suppose it's just unfamiliar smells that stops me from going, this is
the best red wine you've ever
fantastic. Have you had any feedback from your French friends about your English wines?
Well, I have to say they were all so dubious, and they pleaded with me to not plant a vineyard, and I have a great friend, Lucien Legrand, who said
he's the great Parisian wine merchant, isn't he?
The great Parisian wine merchant, and the great supporter of little winemakers and country wines, and the winemaker as an artisan, and he said, when I started telling him the varieties I was interested in planting, he kept saying, "It will break your heart. Don't do it." And I think I have to say, he's my greatest supporter now.
I like your white wine very much, but I can't understand, really, the point of the red.
I would say that it's just going to require a little time and a little patience. I think that I'm going to get there with the red. And I've got, I certainly, thank goodness, have customers that aren't as discriminating as Jancis Robinson, because I've sold out of my 92 and my 93 red, and it's a great challenge. It's a great challenge to make those reds, and come back in a couple of years' time, and I will offer you a lovely Somerset goat's cheese, some lovely walnut bread, and one of my red wines, and I think that you'll find it pretty irresistible.
Okay, I will.